It's because of the curses. We are in these curses. Our people have been suffering in the fields. We've been segregated. We've been through racism. All of this just because of the curses. Because Israel is too disobedient. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies, for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
In the view, which means that
Hey, Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless. Welcome in. For all those who are joining us via Instagram and via our YouTube and via our Facebook. Again, I say welcome. Yeah, so tonight we are inbounding on another episode of Bible study. And for you that are hearing the noise in the background, yes, you're not mistaken. We have a lot of noise because tonight I switched my location. I just felt like, being outside a bit. And so for that purpose, I am on the outside. And so you would be hearing a lot of traffic, at times a very high amount of airplane traffic also. So yes, just bear with us as we go through that. The noise is just temporary, it's not a long-lasting sound or effect, and so therefore, most of what we say would be heard clearly. All right. And so before we get started with tonight's broadcast, let me just put out some announcements there. And before I even put out announcements, I just want to say some things, one or two little things that I would like to say. And one of the things I want to touch on is you hear the plane. Yeah, so that within itself tells you that we are in a very low fly zone. Okay, and yeah, that is a constant, everyday sound that I would have to endure. But no praises, such is life. And back to as I was saying, I would have had. I wouldn't call it a dislike, but the unpleasurable moment of speaking with a few brothers. They are brothers indeed, even though they may have the rationale of, what's the word? I don't want to insult the brothers. Okay, let's just call them Gentiles. Even though they may have the rationale of Gentiles, not having the understanding of who they are, not having the understanding of who is the Most High God, not having the understanding of what is required of us as His people. And as I said, I had the misfortune of speaking with some of them, trying, to give them insight, give them knowledge that they would gain understanding and enlightenment as to who they are, their heritage, who is the Most High God, and that we are Israel, His chosen people. I was trying to explain to these brothers, they are of the Levite tribe. And so, there are a few barriers that we must overcome, first of all, and that is the language. Second of all, that is the comprehension, okay? Because barring the language, sometimes you may not understand the words. And then, as I said, comprehension, understanding what the word means within itself. So these are some of the things I had to fight with. And the third and greatest issue being the greatest problem that they have that is hard for me personally and maybe other brothers who may try with them to break through to them with is the spirituality of serving the Most High God. And when I say serving the Most High God, we know Levites are part of Israel. They're one of the tribes of Israel. And they themselves were chosen by the Most High to be the priests, the keepers of the word of the Most High God. Praises. And so we know they have fallen far from grace and erred and commit sin. Okay? And the most grievous sin that they commit is the worship of false doctrines and idols. And as I said, I had the misfortune of speaking with these brothers, and they're deep into that sorcery, witchcraft, and especially their worship, if not sorcery and witchcraft, they are hardcore into the Catholic religion. Okay, and so I was laboring with these brothers back and forth, trying to bring some reason to our conversation. And as I say, I was stumped, and I was held back through language, through understanding, and through the spirituality of their mindset. And I say that to say that lots of times we may be faced and presented with, I wouldn't call it challenges, but situations where we would come upon brothers and sisters who we feel are Israel and have like mind and spirit, but not realizing that no, not everybody is in this truth. Okay? We are predominantly most all Israel, but we are not all in this truth, not all of the understanding, not all of the knowledge. Okay? And so it is not um, a point that you should feel like, oh, I'm not getting through to these brothers and sisters. No, it is a disheartening fact. But like the Bible says, and like the Most High says, not all shall be saved, and not all will come to the reckoning and the understanding of this truth. For whatever reason, it's not of my power, not of your will. It is all in the hands of the Most High. Okay? And some spirits will remain asleep, some spirits will remain dead, and some persons will always be reprobate to this truth. Because such is the will of the Most High God. He has it to be so. Because I cannot save you. You cannot save me. I cannot save my mother. I cannot save your sister. It is each of us within our spirit to the will of the Most High God that we gain His salvation, His grace, His mercy, and forgiveness, and come into this truth and walk in His judgment, statutes, and commandments. All right? Until that time when the Most High sends His Son to deliver us for as long as we be there on this earth. Okay? And yeah, so that's just something I wanted to share because, as I say, we are often in the presence of brothers and sisters, and most time we just cohabitate and we feel like everybody is in this truth, everybody is like-minded, everybody is of the same understanding, but no. That's why the Bible tells us we must prove a friend and try every spirit, because we don't know who we are in the midst of. We think everybody is like us who are people of color, when in fact we all have different spirits, different mindsets, different understandings, and different beliefs. Okay, so there, all right. So I got that out. That was just something I wanted to share, to enlighten us to the fact that we have our work cut out, and whatever seed we plant, we just pray the Most High that He waters it and He touches the spirit and it grows. But yes, saints, so tonight is Bible study, as I said earlier. Tonight we are going over Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, and we are going to look at the beast. Okay, all praises, we are going to look at the beast. And before I do that, as I said, I wanted to just point out some of our upcoming events. So tomorrow, as you know, will be Wednesday. And Wednesday is usually our interview. Yeah, that's right, interview. Sometimes it can be lively and provocative, as stated. And other times, it's a lot of just mere fact pointing, where we would give, information pertaining to things that are on our spirit. And so, as I say, sometimes, it's videos, sometimes it's Bible verses, and other times it's just a live conversation. But, tomorrow we'll be coming and we'll be speaking out uh, about the controversy between Israel and Iran. And tomorrow we'll have another open mic night. Anybody that wants to call in and share your opinions and views, you want to leave some comments and make some points, and we can try to help and answer with whatever it is that you would have need some insight on. Yeah, so that is what we will be dealing with tomorrow on In the View. So catch it tomorrow live in the View. It will be between 7 and 9 p.m. as usual. And we will be going live on our Facebook and live on our podcast, sorry, audio podcast. Facebook podcast and audio podcast. Okay? And then this coming Thursday, as you know, sorry, let that plane pass. Yeah, so this coming Thursday, as you know, it is our classroom forum where we would go into the Word and we would get ourselves uh, deep in the understanding and the knowledge of what it is that we are reading. And at times we can read a whole chapter, other times we can have a topic, and other times we can just go verbatim over something that we would have heard or saw. And so this Thursday we are going to have a class, and the class is going to be what is that class again? What are we doing? I think we are going over. I don't have my manual with me to give you the specific. Oh, yes, we will be going over the destruction. The destruction. Okay, that which is prophesied, that which has happened, and that which is happening. So we will cover the destruction, that which is prophesied, that which has happened, and that which is happening. All praises. So yeah, that is something you can look forward to on this upcoming Thursday on our class, the destruction. Okay? Yeah, so all right. From there we are going to Daniel chapter 7, and we'll be looking at, as I said, the beast. All right. So let's get into it. Before I get into it, I always have to get some tweaking done. So let's see what's going on here. Yeah, these Technology are not my friends, but through the grace and mercy of the Most High, do prevail. I do prevail. All praises. And I am trying to see how best I can. And no, nothing is happening there. Yeah, well, okay. We will settle with what we have. All praises. We will settle with what we have. Okay. As I said, Daniel chapter 7. So let us begin. And we are at verse 1. And it says, in the first year of Belteshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Okay, so here we are in Daniel 7, and we see the king now is Belteshazzar. And if we recall before that, Daniel also served under another king of Babylon who was the prior to Belshazzar, and that would have been Nebuchadnezzar. And if knowledge is serving me correct, I think Nebuchadnezzar is either the grandfather or the great grandfather of Belshazzar. Okay? But again, Daniel is in Babylon, and more than likely, Nebuchadnezzar would be his, I guess, grandfather, because that would be a long stretch. But like I say, I am not too specifically sure, but I know it is either grandfather or great grandfather. Okay, so there we will leave it at that, and let us move on. All right, so it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and vision of his head upon his bed. Okay, right. And it says, then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Hmm. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Okay, so it's saying Daniel recorded that which he saw in the dream. He broke it down to the best of his ability. Okay, he interpreted it to the best of his ability. All right, so let's read on. Verse 2, it says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. Okay, so Daniel said, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And so there, what does it mean to strove or strive? It means contention, it means confusion, it means altercation. Okay, so when he says the four winds strove upon the great sea, he is talking about, when it says the sea, it is the multitudes of the earth, or the earth itself, or in some instances, the Bible can be referring, when it says the sea, to the people. Okay, so this time it's referring to the great multitudes of the earth. And when it says the four winds, it's talking about the four great armies. All right, and how do we know that? Let's look at that. Let's go to second address 13 and 5, and let's see how we can get some understanding on that. Second address 13 and 5. All right, and it reads, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Okay, so you see, so the multitude were together as a band or as an army or as a group. All right, so right here, Daniel's vision, he is seeing the four great armies. All right, the four great armies. And it says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens drove upon the great sea. All right? That means there was war upon the earth, and there were four great armies. All right? So, verse 3, and it says, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. All right. Four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. And so the four great beasts that Daniel is talking about are the four great kingdoms. And those four great kingdoms would be those four armies that Daniel spoke of in verse 2. All right? And those four great kingdoms would be Babylon, which was the first kingdom. Second, would be Persia and the Medes, which was the second kingdom. And the third would be the Greeks, which was the third kingdom. The fourth kingdom would be Rome. Okay? Rome. All right, so we have that. All right. So let's look over verse 3 again, and it says, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another, because remember and understand, each kingdom was of a different nation. All praises. Each kingdom was of a different nation. Okay? That's why it says, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. They were all different in many ways, in power, in religion, in worship, and all of these such things. Okay? So let's move on, verse 4. And it says, the first was like a lion. All right? The first was like a lion, and that is symbolic of Babylon. All right? Because when you look at, if you ever look at the image, okay, that is depicted of Daniel's vision, you would see the first was like a lion. All right? And it says, and had eagle's wings. Okay? I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. I beheld I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. Because remember, Babylon was overthrown and toppled on many occasions. Okay? They were overthrown and toppled on many occasions. But in this instance, remember, he's talking about the second kingdom, which would be Edo, Persia, and the Medes. Okay? So let's move on. It says, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Okay? So therefore, you see, it was subdued, taken from a great mighty beast, and made humble and weak like a man. Okay? Made humble and weak like a man because it was conquered. All right? So let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah, let's move on. We go to verse 5. It says, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. Okay. And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. Okay, all praises. So you see, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. All right. And it says, and it raised up itself on one side. Okay. Because remember, it was a dual kingdom. The bear was synonymous of the Persians, which was mightier than the Mede. That's why it said it raised up on one side, because one side was mightier than the other side. All praises. All right. And it says, and in it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Okay? So you see, they said unto it, arise, devour much flesh. That means make much war and devastation amongst men upon earth. Okay? That's what they did, because they reigned from, what was it, 539 BC to 331 BC. Okay? 539 BC to 331 BC, they held dominance and power upon the earth. Okay? With fierce anger. Okay? So, let's move on. Verse 6. And this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of yeah, sorry about that. If I would have cut out, I am very, very sorry. It seems we have some challenges with the internet. You know, these, again, as I always say, are the things of life that we must bear with. So I don't know if you guys would have caught what I would have been saying, but we are now in Daniel chapter 7, and we are going over verse 5. All right, sorry, verse 6 now. We are verse 6. Okay, so for a recap, we touch on Daniel 3, where he said that he saw a great beast come up from the sea. And in verse 4, it spoke of the first beast, which we identified to be Babylon. Then in verse 5, it says he spoke of the second beast, which we identified to be Persia, Media. Okay? Persia and the Medes. All right? So now we are down to verse 6. All right? Where he's talking about this third beast. This third beast that he would have seen. Okay? And let's read it. And it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Praises. So this third beast is identified to be the Greeks, okay, under Alexander the Great. That would be the Greeks. All right. And so it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. Okay? The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Because remember, the Greek Empire was split up. All right, it was split up during the time when Alexander would have died. His kingdom would have been split up and given to 4 kings. Okay, and that is what is referring to right here in Daniel 7. Right, so it says, and dominion was given to it. You see, it says, and it had 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it, meaning the power was taken from the beast and given to the 4 heads. Because after Alexander the Great died, there became 4 great kings. Each one of his generals who he had commanding a specific part of the world, they crowned themselves kings and took control of that particular area. Okay? They took control of that particular area. All right, so let's move on. Verse 7, it says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible. You see that? Dreadful and terrible. So this beast already tells you it's outstanding, far different from the first 3, because Daniel says it was dreadful and terrible. All right? It says, and strong exceedingly. You see? Strong exceedingly means it's mighty, powerful. Okay? It says, and it had great iron teeth. All right? Great iron teeth. And it's referencing, just like I would reference in verse 5, when it referenced the Persia and the Medes, when it says they had, let's look at that, something about their teeth. Yes, and it says, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth, meaning they were a warlike people, great armies. All right, destroying peoples, destroying nations, destroying countries. Okay, so those 3 ribs in the mouth signified the might of their army, just like it's saying here in Daniel chapter 7 when it says, and this I saw in the night vision. All right, then behold, a fourth beast, dreadful, terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. So what Daniel is referencing when it says great iron teeth, it means a mighty, strong, fierce army. What praises? A powerful, mighty, strong, fierce army. All right? See what it says? It devoured and break in pieces. And stamped the residue with the feet of it. Okay? And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So this fourth beast that came up, it said it had iron teeth. It stamped and break the pieces. All right? So what does it mean? It stamped and break the pieces. It means it mashed out all of those other 4 kingdoms that would have taken power from the third beast. Okay? That's why it says it devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue, because the residue would be those 4 kings that remained from that one mighty beast, which was the third beast that had all power. And then the power was divided between the 4. And so the fourth beast stamped them out, mashed them down, and took control and became the one power. Okay? All right. And it says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, it was diverse, meaning much different. Okay, and it had 10 horns, right? And so, what are those 10 horns? The 10 horns. Let's look at that. The 10 horns. Let's go to Revelations 12, 3 to 4. Revelations chapter 12, verse 3 to 4. Okay, and so it reads, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads, right? And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Okay, all right. So you see, it says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. All right. So that right there is going into the same vision that Daniel saw. Because when we look at verse 7, it says, and this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible. So what makes this beast so dreadful and terrible is because unlike the third beast, which was made out of one kingdom and turned into 4 kingdoms, this beast was one kingdom, but still had subsidiary rulers, which had power, but they all served and worshiped this one beast. All praises, they all served and worshiped this one beast. Okay? So when we understand, it says the beast was dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, because even though these other subsidiary rulers were with them and they were mighty and powerful, they still were subject to the beast. Okay, that's what made him dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, because all of these other residue that he stamped down, they came to worship the beast. All right, they came to worship this beast. All right, and so it says, and he had great iron teeth, meaning he had the might and power of the military, which subdued all of these other remnants that were left. Remember, it says, and he stamped the residue. Okay, those would have been the 4 mighty kingdoms that were left from the third beast. All right, and it said, and it was diverse. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, so when it says it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, it means it had a whole different agenda or a whole different kind of kingdom. Okay, a whole different paradigm of rule and control. That's why it was diverse. Okay, and so when we reference that, we go to Revelations 12 and verse 3 to 4. It says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. You see? So this great red dragon is the beast that Daniel would have seen inside of verse 7. Okay? And how do we know? It says, the same beast having 7 heads and 10 horns. And when we go back to Daniel chapter 7 and we read, you see where it says, and it had terrible and strong, exceeding, and it had great iron teeth, devoured and break into pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all other beasts that were before it. All right? Now, when we go back, we look at verse 7, and it says, and it had 10 horns. So when we look at Revelations 12, it says the same thing. And it had 10 horns, 7 crowns upon its heads, meaning it had 10 little kingdoms and it had 7 great kingdoms, which all were subdued and subservient to that one beast, right? 10 little kingdoms which did not have rule, and 7 great kingdoms which did have rule. All right? So when we look at that, we understand those 10 kingdoms or those 10 horns would be the EU nation. All right? Those 10 horns would be the EU nation, which is allied and subservient to the beast. Okay? So you're beginning to understand, you're beginning to see, you're beginning to put it together. Those 10 horns are the EU nations, which are subservient to the beast. All right? And so those 10 horns, which are the EU nations, those countries would be Belgium, France, Germany, Ireland, Luxembourg, Ireland, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Denmark, Italy, Greece, and Britain. That's what it was. Great Britain. Okay? So those 10 horns represent the EU of nations that exist right now. Okay? Those 10 horns represent the EU of nations that exist right now. All right? And so if you remember, those 4 kingdoms that were stamped, they are synonymous and represented in these 7 crowns that are upon the 7 heads. All right? And those 7 crowns are 7 nations. All right? And the 7 nations that are being spoken of in Daniel 7 is the NATO. Okay? The NATO nations. And those nations would be Greece, would be Rome, would be Spain, would be France, would be Germany, would be Russia, okay? All right, and Great Britain, those 7 nations, okay? All right. So from there, let's go to Second Ezra. Let's go back to Revelations 12. And let's touch on verse 4, and it says, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven. Right? So when it speaks of his tail, it's talking about the Rome, the fourth beast before out the Roman Church, because during the time when the fourth beast would have had power, it would have went and it would have made armies to go and round up all of the residue of the children of Israel. All right? And at that time, the residue of the children of Israel that were left in the kingdom were primarily three tribes. That's why it says the third part of the stars of heaven. All right? And those three tribes would have been Judah, Benjamin, Levi, the southern kingdom. All right? And so that's why it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. And who are the stars of heaven? That would be the 12 tribes of Israel that was being referenced to as the stars of heaven that were drawn down. And it says, and did cast them to the earth. All right? Cast them to the earth means put them in slavery. Because when we look at it right now, who are over in the western part of the world in slavery? Primarily Judah, primarily Benjamin, and primarily Levi. All praises. So it says, and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Okay, so that's going into something a little more deeper. And so we'll just move from there. All right. So from there, let's go to 2nd Ezra 12 and 10, and let's look at something. All right. So for those of you who are not familiar, Esdras is a book inside of a compilation of books of the Apocrypha. And the Apocrypha is a part of the Bible. It was not taken out like how some people would tell you that it was taken out. It was never added to the standard Bible that we know right now, but it is a part of the written word of the Most High God. Okay? And so, again, as I said, we are going to 2nd Esdras. All right? 2nd Esdras. And we're going to chapter 12. We're going to read from verse 10 to 16. All right? 10 to 16. And let's get some insight. Where did I say I wanted 12, 10 to 16. All right, so let's read it. It says, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. Okay? He said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. All right? So, you know what? We're not good there yet. Let's move on. Let's continue and then I'll go there. So, where are we at? Let's go back to Daniel and let's read Daniel 7, verse 8. All right? It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. You see? So, from that 10 horns, there rose up another little horn. Because remember now, as I said, this fourth kingdom was Rome. Rome was the mightiest empire and kingdom that they ever had. All right? And so when we look at verse 7, it says, and it stamped, it break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. Okay? It break in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. All right? So that means it was so mighty, it took down 4 mighty kingdoms by itself one time. That's how powerful, the fourth kingdom, the Roman Empire was. All right? Let's go back to verse 8. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. There came up among them another little horn. right? So let's continue. It says, before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots. You see? Before whom there were three of the first horns plucked up by the root. So this little horn that came up, even though the fourth kingdom was mighty and powerful, it had 10 horns and 7 heads. But yet this little horn rose up and it plucked up three. It says, and what did it say? Yeah, the horns, the first horns, and it plucked up by the roots. Sorry, I'm losing track. And it says, among them another little horn before whom there were three of the, okay, and it plucked up three of the first horns by the roots, meaning it eradicated or destroyed three of the powers by the root, meaning got rid of them permanently. Okay, took them out of power. All right, took them out of power. All right, so what do I want? Now let's go to second address 12 and 10. Second address 12 and 10. And let's see what this little horn represents. All right, let's wait till this plane passes. All right, so second address 12 and 10, and it reads, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. All right, so here we see Ezra is being given the interpretation of a vision that Brother Daniel would have had. And for understanding's sake, that's why when I opened up, I told you Daniel wrote down the vision that he saw and he interpreted it to the best of his understanding, because the vision was not, sorry, the understanding and the meaning of the vision was not revealed to him. Okay? All right, so here we see it was now fell on to Ezra to give the interpretation of the vision. All right, so let's read on. It says, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest came up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. Okay, which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. All right, so verse 12. But it was not expounded unto him, meaning the interpretation of the vision was not given to Daniel. All praises. And it says, therefore now I declare it unto thee. All right, so now I'm going to make it known to you. All right, verse 13, it says, behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be fed above all the kingdoms that were before it. So you see, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon the earth, and it shall be fed above all the kingdoms that were before it. All right, so we just read that. Daniel chapter 7 and verse 7 and verse 8. Okay, that were before it. In verse 14 it says, in the same shall 12 kings reign one after another. So in the same shall 12 kings rule one after another. And what is that synonymous of? What does that sound like to you? It's speaking of Rome, isn't it? Because why? Rome had 12 Caesars before the time that they fell. All right? 12 Caesars before the time that their dynasty fell. All right? Okay, so let's move on. Verse 15, it says, whereof the second shall begin to reign and shall have more time than any of the 12. Okay, you see? It says, whereof the second shall begin to reign and shall have more time than any of the 12. All right, so that means one reigned longer than the other 11. Okay, verse 16. And this do the 12 wings signify, which thou sawest. Okay, so that's what it was. Vision was all about. It's telling him about that fourth kingdom, which was the Roman Empire. That fourth kingdom. All right. So we're gonna leave that. Mm, uh, da, 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 mm. So when we look at Second Ezra 12, and we get an understanding of verse 13, and it says, behold, the days will come that there shall rise up a kingdom upon earth, and it shall be fed above all the kingdoms that were before it. Okay? It shall be fed above all the kingdoms that were before it. That right there is speaking synonymously of America, America the Great, okay? Which is a part of Rome, which is a part of the Roman Empire. Okay? So when we reference back to Daniel chapter 7 and we look at verse 7, we get the understanding of where it comes from and what it was talking about in 2nd Ezra 12. And it reads, and this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and a strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay? So right there, it is referencing America, which is synonymous of Rome. Okay? Which is synonymous of Rome. All right? So back to Daniel 7, and let's look at verse 8 again. It says, and I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So now it's speaking specifically about this little horn. All right? So it's speaking specifically about this little horn. And it says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. All right? So this little horn made war with 3 of the other horns, and it destroyed them. And who was that? As I said, that little horn is America, because remember, America made war with France, and they conquered France. America made war with Spain, and they conquered Spain. America made war with Great Britain, and they conquered Great Britain. Because why? How did they get their independence? Took it from Britain. How did they get control of the Americas? They took it from France and Spain. That is why the language of the Americas is Spanish, the language of the Americas is French, and the language of the Americas is English. But America subdued 3 of those nations and took their power and dominance, okay, and took their lands. That is how they became the predominant power in the Western Hemisphere. They conquered France, they conquered Spain, and they conquered Great Britain. Okay? So those were the 3 roots that the little horn would have devoured. Okay? Those are the 3 roots that the little horn would have devoured. All right? And it says, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man. It says, in this horn were the eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Hmm. So again, it is synonymous of which nation? America. Because when you reference America and you look on their money, what do you see? Don't you see an eye? Don't you see an eye? That is what they worship. That is what they symbolize, the eye. That's why it says here, and Daniel says, uh, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things, right? And so when it says a mouth speaking great things, it's talking about what? What is America primarily in control of? The media, right? They control the media. Every and anything that you see, hear, watch, or even participate in is through the American media. Everything that goes on in the world, they whitewash it down and don't give you the truth of what's happening or the truth of what they're doing around the world. They control the media. All right? That's why it says, and a mouth speaking great things. They can say whatever they like, and they can coerce other people into saying whatever they like because they control the media. So when they tell you, oh, this happened, XYZ, you and I, we have no way of knowing. I mean, now we do because we can now tap into other media streams and get a different perspective and vision and understanding of what is happening. But before time, when America gave you the whitewashed version of the news of whatever took place or is happening, you had no other choice but to believe what they told you. Okay? You had no other choice other than to believe what they told you because they controlled all the news, all the media, every forum and every stream. All right? All right, so let's move on. Verse 9. And it says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down. Okay, so now Daniel is saying he watched the vision and he saw until the thrones were cast down. And which thrones are those? These are those 7 crowns and those 10 horns and that one mighty horn. Okay, the beast, the 7 horns, sorry, the 10 horns, the 7 crowns, and the one little horn. Daniel said, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. The Ancient of Days did sit. And who is this Ancient of Days that Daniel is talking about? For that, let's go to Job chapter 36. Let's look at verse 26. And let's get an understanding of who is this Ancient of Days that Job is talking about. Okay? Job chapter 36 and verse 26. And it reads, Behold, the Most High God is great, and we know him not, neither can the number of his years be searched out. Okay, you see? The Most High God is great, and we know him not, neither can the number of his years be searched out. All praises. So now we understand when Daniel said, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. So he's talking about the Most High God, whose garment was white as snow. All praises. And the hair of his head like the pure wool. Okay? Says, and the hair of his head was like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheel as burning fire. Mm. So this description, a lot of us get it mixed up, saying it is a description of the Christ, when in fact it is a description of the Most High God. The description of the Christ in Revelations 2 is, let's look at it. Revelations. mm, blah, 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 blah. Mm, where is that now? So Revelations 2. It's Revelations 1, eh? Some, yes, the Revelations 1, sorry, Revelations 1 and 12 it says, And I turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. In the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the sun. See? One like unto the Son of Man. All right? So the depiction in Daniel 7 is not that of the Son of Man, but that of the Most High God. And the word depiction in Revelations 1 and 12, sorry, 1 and 13, is not that of the Most High God, but that of the Son of the Most High God, which is the Christ. Okay? All right. So let's go back to Daniel chapter 7, and we are in verse 9. And it says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. You see? His wheels as burning fire. And so, what does they mean, his wheels? It's a craft. All right? Heavenly hosts, they possess crafts. In our interpretation, vehicles that they can use and maneuver and travel in. All right? So, to get an understanding of these wheels, let's go to Psalms 104 and verse 3. And let's see that. Psalms 104 and verse 3. So we can see what these wheels are. Psalms 104 and verse 3. All right. And it says, Who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot. You see that? Who walketh upon the wings of the wind. All right. Who maketh the clouds Yes, so we cut out again. We cut out again. So yeah, we are back. All right. So from there, let's go back to Daniel 7 and let's read verse 10. And it says, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. And those are the angels ministering unto the Most High. And it says, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. You see that? 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set. So when it says 10,000 times 10,000, it's talking about, excuse me, the peoples who are going to be judged. You see, it says, stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. You see, the books of life and the books of death, which recorded everything that you and I would have done in our time in this life. All praises. The books were open. And which book would you be recorded in? Is it the book of life or the book of death? All praises. The book of life or the book of death. Verse 11, I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. You see again, the power and authority that the little horn, which is America, see now has become the great horn because it stamped out all of its opposition. It got rid of Britain, got rid of Spain, got rid of, what was that? France. All right, got rid of all its opposition. So from the little horn, it now became the great horn. All right. So it says, I beheld even till the beast was slain. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, given to the burning flame. You see? So now we have to understand here what Brother Daniel is talking about. So the beast here he's talking about now is the power that resides today, not the original beast. Okay? Not the original beast, because the original fourth beast was Rome. But Rome was trampled. Remember? It said it stamped the residue and break in pieces. Right? So Rome was trampled. Okay, and that's how you got the little horn, the 10 horns, and the 7 kingdoms. All right, and so from that great beast, which was Rome, you end up with the little horn, which is now the beast. And you see what the Bible says. It says, I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, and beheld even till the beast was slain. Okay? Because remember, when we read Revelation 17, it says, and he was given power to make war with the saints, to wear out the saints of the Most High. And how do they wear us out? By putting us in slavery, keeping us oppressed, okay, trodden under feet, victimized, killing us in the streets, and nobody has the power to do anything because they are that great beast. And what does it say? It says, the voice of the great words which the horn spake. Okay, the lies that they tell on us, the bywords, the proverbs, we are niggas, we are spicks, we're lazy wetbacks, all these things. We are not the real Israelites. Okay, we are not Jews, we're criminals, thugs, gangsters. We don't love our families. We don't love our women. We're not good fathers. All these things, they lie and they defame us within the media. Okay? These are the things which that horn speaks about us. All right, and then Daniel says, I beheld even till the beast was slain. All praises. Because remember, the time is coming. And the beast, which is America, is going to be slain, going to be trodden down under feet. You see what it says? Be slain and his body destroyed. And when it says his body, is talking about his country. All right? His country and his land. Right now, America is the greatest land, the so-called greatest land on the earth. That's why it says, beheld, I beheld even till the beast was slain. Okay? Meaning America destroyed and his body destroyed, meaning the country itself was destroyed. So America, the beast, the army, the people will be destroyed, and America, the country itself, will be destroyed and given to the burning flame. You see, it's going to be burning on fire. And we can read that in Revelations, I think it's chapter 7 or 8. And we can also read that in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 29, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So let's move on. Verse 12. It says, as concerning the rest of the beast. See? Rest of the beast. Because as I said, the beast had one little horn. The beast had 10 other horns. And the beast had 7 kingdoms. All right? So remember now it says in verse 11, the beast is going to be slain, which is destroyed. That beast would be that horn. That's America. The primary beast. It's going to destroy. And then it says, and the body, meaning the country that the people of America live in, that's going to be destroyed also. I'll come back in verse 12 and says, as concerning the rest, that means the rest. Okay, because remember, Rome is one nation. Even though the might and power of Rome is gone, they still have authority. And their authority lies through the Caucasian race, the so-called white man on the earth. That's why you see the EU and the NATO, which are the 10 horns and the 7 kingdoms, are a part of the beast. Okay? A part of the beast. Excuse me. And that's why it comes back now in verse 12 and says, as concerning the rest of the beasts. That's the Caucasian, the Edomites, the so-called white man. Okay, the Bible is going to give you the prophecy for them. It says, they had their dominion taken away. All praises. You see? Right now, they are the ruling entities, powers, nations, and countries on the earth. But that is for a short time because they're going to be visited. Okay? So Daniel says, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Because the Most High destroyed America and its people, but it spared the rest of these beasts. Why? Because remember what the Bible says. He who sells a man into captivity will be put into captivity, right? So they are going to be used in the kingdom as our captives, our slaves. All praises. That is what they're spared for. That's why the Bible said yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. They have a purpose. All praises, they have a purpose. Verse 13. It says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, you see, coming on the chariots, and came to the Ancient of Days, you see, Christ coming to the Most High. It says, and they brought him near before him. Those are the angels. The angels brought Christ unto the Most High. Verse 14, it says, and there was given him dominion. What is that dominion? And we read in Revelations 18, where the Christ was given authority to destroy all those nations. And the earth was given to him, put in his hands, and which he gave to us, his faithful. All praises says, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. All praises. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. You see? Because as it stands, the beast, America, looks like it is a nation or a kingdom that can never be destroyed, never be put underfoot, never be taken down. Because when we read Revelations 13, is it 13? Let's look at that. Let's go to Revelations 13. Let's see that. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, blah, 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 blah. And the beast that I saw was like unto the leopard. No, not Revelation 13. Which one is it? Is it, 11? There appeared another, no, 11, which is without the temple either, and olive trees. Or maybe Revelation 17. So there came out of the 70s with them kings of the, yes, Revelation 17, that's where it is. Right? So he said, he carried me in the spirit in the wilderness. I saw a woman sit upon the scarlet river and committed fornication. The inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with wine, blah, blah, blah. The woman was arrayed in purple, and upon her head was like, yes, right there it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mastery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. See? That speaks to America. All right, what did it say? And upon her almost done anyhow, but as I say, the internet cut out again. So we were reading Revelation 17 and verse 5, and it says, and this is the depiction of Babylon the Great. Spiritually, Babylon the Great, spiritually, Egypt, spiritually, Sodom. Okay? And this is America. And this is synonymous of America. Revelation 17, verse 5, it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Why? Because when we go back up and we read, In verse 1, it says, There came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. And who is that great whore that sits upon many waters? The one great nation that believes it cannot be destroyed, can never be touched, because it has basis in every nation in the world. See, that's what it says. That sitteth upon many waters. They put their bases all around the world because they do not want anybody to ever feel like they can rise up and challenge them. All right? And in verse 2 it says, With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. See, made drunk with the wine of her fornication. That's why in verse 5 it says, She is the, a poet was named, written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Okay? So let's go back to Daniel 7. Now, is that all I wanted? No, that's not well, that's what I wanted. Anyhow, we'll reference that another time. But for right now, for time's sake, let's move on. Let's go to 15. In verse 15, it says, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. You see? Because remember, he was famous for his endowed interpretations. He was blessed from the Most High to interpret almost every and any dream and any vision. All right, but this one, he could not interpret, he could not understand, because remember, as it said, the vision was not for him to interpret, it was for him to see. For that time, it was prophecy. That's why the angel went to, excuse me, Ezra, and told Ezra, this is the interpretation of the vision that your brother Daniel saw. Okay? So Daniel said, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. All right? Verse 16, I came near unto one of them, even to one of the angels. I came near to one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, made me know interpretation of the things. Okay, he made him know the interpretation of the things. Right, verse 17. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. You see? So he saw the four kings, but at that time he had no understanding of who they were. So the angel told him, these will be four kings that will rise up out of the earth. And these bugs are not playing. Wow. But anyhow, like I say, almost done and I can go into the house. This was a bad idea. But all praises. Verse 18, it says, But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. All praises. You see, the saints of the kingdom will take, the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom. And how? Because the Christ is going to come, he's going to lay waste to that great horn, going to destroy their kingdom, then he's going to subdue and enslave the other rest of the beast. And after he's taken out all of our enemies and all of our oppressors and all of our hindrances on this earth, he is going to subdue the earth. He's going to turn it into his kingdom and he's going to give it to us, his chosen people. All praises. He is going to give it to us. That's what verse 18 says. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And why? Because when the Christ comes, he's going to bring his heavenly hosts, but also he's going to employ us to fight along with him. All right, so a lot of us are going to get to partake in that heavenly fight. Okay, that's why I said the saints are going to take the kingdom, not just given to us, take it by force, not violence, but by force, because we will become the superpower of the earth. We will have the greatest power and artillery and weaponry on our side. Again, for the breaks in the presentation, because I don't know, I maybe went too far from the house, because as I said, I changed my location. I am actually on the outside. I wanted to get some atmosphere and feel some of the outdoor, but looks like that was a bad idea. Not only that, the bugs out here are playing. They are not playing. But we are almost done, so let's go back to Daniel 7, and we just read verse 18. Let us read verse 19. It says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. So then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. See? So Daniel says, then he would know the truth of this fourth beast. All right? Excuse me. So when he says, then he would know the truth of this fourth piece, he now understands, right, what this fourth piece is. Because remember what the angel told him, it is four kings, all right? It is four kings, okay? So let's move on. Verse 20 says, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom and before whom three fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So he's saying that little horn that came up, besides the 10 horns, he was mightier than the other horns. He was greater than the 7 heads. Okay? That's why he said his look was more stout than his fellows. All right? Verse 21 says, I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them. You see? And this is what's happening right now. The horn is making war with us right now, aren't they? Who controls this Western Hemisphere where the majority of us live? Who has us under subjection, oppression? Who writes laws that convicts us unfairly? Who gives their military in lieu, not military, their police force, the authority to shoot us down in the street, to beat us in public like dogs? Who enslaved us, put chains around our necks? That is the beast, the little horn, America. Okay? Verse 22 and says, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. All praises. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. All right, verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms. Yeah, so anyhow, brothers and sisters, we're gonna end it right there because our video keeps cutting in and out. So we don't want to prolong, because when you read further on from verse 23 down to 28, it's self-explanatory and it speaks the same thing, where the saints would be given dominion of the kingdom. The judgment will sit, and the judgment being that the beast will be destroyed, his kingdom shall be destroyed, his nation will be destroyed, and that's about it. Okay, so you take your time and you read down from 23 where we left off and go to 28, and you would see. All right, so with that being said, we now come to the understanding of who the beast is, who the little horn is, who the 10 horns are, who the 7 kingdoms are, who the first, second, and third beasts were, and who is going to uh, make war with the saints. All right? But not who is going to make war, who is making war with the saints, because we are in war right now. We are at war right now. All praises. And so we have the understanding that the Christ will be sent, okay, to deliver us. All right? So there, we got some enlightenment and some understanding on Daniel 7 with regard to the beast, the horn, okay, and the 7 kingdoms and the 10 horns. So with that, we say shalom, Most High in Christ bless. You be blessed, Israel.